Hello, 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 hello. Today I'm talking with Michele Playfair. We talked about being the off one out and not having all the answers.
I'm Ivanul from Who's Agile. My pronouns are he and him. Welcome to my channel. You see a lot of agilists around me on this screen. If you want to hear me interviewing, please click that subscribe button because these are the people that I've invited so far. If you think I'm missing people, let me know in the comments. And that like button, well, if you liked today's interview, don't forget to click it.
Hello, hello everyone, and hello with me I have Michele. Is that how I should pronounce your name?
Sure, yes. Hello.
Hello, and here I want to show immediately I'm in Belgium in Ghent, and we're going directly to Melbourne, which is the complete other side of the world. It's here, let's say, 10 minutes after 11 in the morning on a Sunday morning. And what's the time on your side?
It is in the nighttime, so it is 10 past 7 p.m.
So we see that we have a completely different time zone, very far from each other. And when you say PM, is that Saturday or Sunday? I think you're ahead of us, right?
It's Sunday. Sunday,
It's Sunday.
yes.
So you're
We
at
are in
the
the
end of the
future.
day. You're in the future. So I'm talking
Yes.
with the future. I like that. I really like that.
Despite what my quality of internet will tell you, we are in the future.
Yeah. Michele, before we jump into the questions, what do you want people to know about you? How do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh gosh, what do I want people to know about me? Is that the same as introducing myself? I'm amazing. No. Okay, so I guess I should talk about work-related things. We're talking about agile.
You can
Potentially,
choose. This
no?
is a very open way, and so it allows you to go in whatever you want to share. Um,
Sure. Okay. Let's talk about work. So I'm currently an engineering manager. I work for the digital division of Bendigo Bank. And I guess looking at my work until now, I think I've never had the same job title twice. So I started out working as a software developer, became a manager, went back to being an IC, did more contract work coding. Then I became a business analyst, and then I was test manager, and then kind of moved into agile team facilitator, digital sorry, not a digital, oh my goodness, delivery lead, and then scrum master, and now back to managing engineers again. So yeah, they've been around different parts of the industry a fair bit. In between all that, I also worked on YOW conferences with I Know Who I Know has been one of your guests, and I've been lucky enough to meet quite a few of your previous guests when they've come down to Australia on the YOW tour, which has been pretty cool. So yeah. What else? I don't know. What do I want people to know about me? I want you to know that I'm really funny. Yes. If I keep telling people that, they might believe it.
I tried that with my daughter. She doesn't agree with me, but okay, that's a different
I
kind
know.
of.
Yeah, that's it. No, it's really, I tell my kids the same thing. It's like, kids, you're so lucky. Your mum's really funny. And they just roll their eyes and look at me. And I'm like, no, really, I am. I figure if I keep telling them often enough, they might eventually believe me one day.
Or become world champions in eye rolling. That's also a possibility.
Oh, I think that just comes with teenagers, doesn't it? It's just, a gift that they acquire along the way.
Exactly. Somehow, at least one part of our education or teaching our children things. But that's quite a nice introduction. Let's jump into that very first question. What is something that people usually don't know about you, but has influenced you in who you are?
Okay, so I grew up and then moved from there to a town in regional Australia, which was quite monocultural. And I think that has affected how I look at different groups of people. Just I remember thinking, wow, imagine if I couldn't speak English or if I didn't look like everybody else, and wanting to kind of yeet my classmates into that situation so they could kind of see what it was like. I was 7 years old, but I still kind of remember thinking that. And I think
Wow.
that experience has made me not want to be that sort of person, that is very, um, what's the right word? Almost hostile to people who are different from them. And so I'm always interested to learn more about how I can help make things more inclusive for everybody, rather than kind of fold my arms and be like, oh, you're not from here, that kind of vibe. Um, so yeah, I think that probably, when I look back, I think, oh yeah, that's kind of shaped how I view things in a lot of ways, I think. Mm.
That's and you had that feeling already at a very young age. That's remarkable. Is there anything that triggered that because you had some friends who were different, or
No, I was the different one because I
you were
talked
different?
funny. I
Ah,
was the one from a foreign country, the foreign country of America. And it was just so weird to me because the group of people that I had been in school with until then were all very different. But if you've got a whole classroom full of white people, I guess the person with the accent is the freak. Um, so yeah, you know what kids are like. They're not always nice, but it was a very, very different um experience.
but in a way, because you had that, it kind of shaped you to trying to avoid to become that.
Mm.
Did you feel supported at that moment by, I don't know, parents or other people who did um yeah did make you feel better than some of the people in your class then or in school?
Um, Probably not really. I don't know. It was a different time, suck it up, get back in there. um, was probably more of the vibe. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I guess I try and keep an eye out for people that might seem to be not included in the group. I think that kind of, if you're facilitating, it's I think a useful skill to have, to kind of try and see who the people are who might not seem to be as comfortable participating with whatever you're doing, and think about different ways you can do things to make sure people feel like they can be included in whatever it is that you're doing. So yeah, I think that's something I think about a lot. You know, like everything else, work in progress, but I am trying to keep an eye out for that sort of stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, and again, we might not always know why people feel left out, but and if they don't speak up, but indeed, I think it's a very good way for a facilitator to watch out for these kind of people who are less responsive, who are whatever for whatever reason feeling less in the
Mm.
group. So that's a nice thing to do.
Yep. And DEI has become a dirty word in some parts of the world, but these things are important, right? Like inclusion is important, and I think it's something, if you're in a leadership position, you should be doing.
I 100% agree, and the fact that people think it's, I guess, well, we don't want to go too much into politics, but I guess it's a kind of backlash to having more people in the world realizing that this is important, and then others who've never been in that situation, who for whatever strange reason, they now feel less special, and they are scared of that. But yeah, I think
Well, yes.
yeah.
As the saying goes, rights aren't pie. There's enough for everybody.
Exactly, I would say the same thing. Let's move to that second question. If you had not been doing what you've been doing now, what would have become of you? And you already shared that you had multiple kind of roles, but they all seem to be into IT. Was there at some point a
Mm.
destiny outside, or was there something else?
Well, I was very pragmatic as a young person. my main goal, like so many people I was at school with, was to just get out of the town that we were in. So go to university in Sydney was one of the goals. And the economy in Australia was not good, particularly good at the time I was in high school. And there was a thing called the Commonwealth Employment Service, which put out a big fat kind of brochure that listed potential jobs. Nowadays, of course, all this is online, but you could leaf through this and kind of look up jobs. And because the economy was in such a state, I was like, well, I must pick something that will definitely get me a job. So I was actually initially interested in architecture. Architecture, I don't know what it's like in other countries, but I think in Australia it's like 4 years, 4, 5, 6 years. It's quite a long course. And at the end, according to this book, you probably won't get a job. So I was like, oh, no, scratch that. And then I talked about computing courses and oh yes, you'll definitely get a job if you go into computers. And I had a computer at home. I was like, oh, sweet, this sounds good. All right, that's what I'm going to do. So very boringly, I went and looked at what courses I needed to do in my last years of school to get into the university and kind of work my way back from there. So it's about 14 or 15 and I already had it all planned out,
Wow.
which is really quite dull. I
Or
think
smart
about,
or dependent. Yeah.
it's a bit boring, like a career in the arts where I grew up, just like that really wasn't a thing, right? Like who does that? And I was thinking, when I was thinking about this question, I'm like, who does that? And then I realized that two of the people I was at high school with, one runs a music festival in Poland, which is wildly popular and has been for many years, and another one is, a poet. And I'm like, oh, maybe it was just me. Maybe it was I that had no imagination. I'm definitely trying to encourage my kids to be perhaps slightly more adventurous. You don't have to, and I guess now people change jobs more often.
Right.
At the time that I was in school, people were still kind of a job for life kind of thing. You didn't change
Right.
careers. You went into nursing or whatever, and that was what you did until you retired. So I think it's a little bit easier now to think of, what you do at university might not be what you get a job in. I work with a whole bunch of people in tech that went to film school, and that's okay, kids. You can, do something at university. If it doesn't work out, you've got another thing to do. So yeah, I was thinking about this. I was like, oh, it would have been great to be an actor or an author. I still like the idea of, landscaping. I like pottering around in the garden. But also all my family are basically teachers, like both sides, my parents, aunts, uncles, cousins, my sister, so I might have ended up being a teacher. I actually did do a teaching postgrad and was teaching senior high school IT for 6 months. So, but who knows? I don't know. I wish I'd had more imagination. Let's put it that way.
And when you look at, because now you're talking about 14, 15, something like that, was there an idea for the even younger Michelle? Was there at some point that you were dreaming of something else? You already talked a little bit about
Oh yeah,
architecture.
I think yeah. No, before, like, when you're a little kid, oh yeah, I wanted to be an actor. Yeah, definitely. That
And
was, yeah.
did you do any acting classes or anything like that?
Um, I did. There wasn't much, like the town I was in didn't have a lot of that stuff. There was a little theater group that basically specialized in kind of British style pantomimes. Which that was kind of fun. But I think there's a lot more stuff around for kids now to do that it was sports where I grew up. There's a lot of sports people that come from the town I was in, and there was a lot of, you know, you play softball in the summer and netball in the winter, and that's kind of what you do. There wasn't a lot of scope for thespian activity, I don't think.
And you never planned to become a professional sporter then?
Oh heavens, no. think I peaked at probably age 14 at softball. That was probably my high point. I got to play in an international game against Japan. That was exciting.
Wow, that's
But
nice
no.
already. Let's move. We're talking about some of these things, these challenges, being around people that you're being the odd one out. Talking about, okay, there's maybe not that much that encourage you as a young child, much more these days. But these are all kind of challenges. So what do you consider at this point your biggest challenge, at least the biggest challenge that you want to be openly on the internet, of course?
I think my biggest challenge is probably being patient. Historically, looking back at past me, I think having kids forces you into having more patience than you perhaps ever thought you could. And one of the other things I feel like I have hopefully learned is that it's better to be kind than to be right. So, past me didn't quite enjoy attempting to prove that they were the smartest person in the room. And I like to think that perhaps I have overcome the challenge of not being that person. Because I think thinking about patience and not trying to be right all the time stops you from being an asshole. So these are good things.
Yeah, I think that is really a hard time. So especially, yeah, I think younger people, it's really important to be correct and in discussions, but then sometimes people go over boundaries and or using words just in many ways to prove that they're smarter, but definitely not being nice and then becoming an asshole in a way. And so
Yep, I see it in my son sometimes. He's very smart and he's very, pedantic. If you say something wrong, you will know about it. And I'm trying to teach him that yes, that okay, I get it, but better to be kind than to be right. You don't have to say it that way. Like you will not retain friends if this is how you're going to speak to people.
and does that work?
I think so. I mean, the challenge is I think that they all talk to each other like that. They're all playing games online and kind of yelling at each other. And one time I went in to his room and he was just going off at somebody that he was playing a game with. And I said to him, you can't, like, no one's going to talk to you if you're like, why are you like this? And he goes, they can't hear me. And I said, I'm sorry, what? He goes, the microphone's off. Nobody can hear me. I'm just essentially talking to myself in here. And I went, okay, still not great, but much better. All right, good. Carry on as you were.
It's like the people who are shouting in their cars at all the other drivers, like nobody
Right?
hears it.
Exactly.
But we all see the parts moving and we see like, yeah, okay, they're getting. But it's already smarter, so yeah. And hopefully his mic
Yeah.
is not turned on by mistake from time to time, because that might give some other reactions.
Well, you make that mistake once and hopefully learn from that. Yes.
Or you might not know why someone never talks to you again.
But yeah. Yeah, and that in itself can be a lesson. So yeah, I guess those are sort of, if I think about, personal kind of challenges, those are things that I try and work on. Other than that, it's just the usual challenges of work stuff and trying to juggle all of the things that seem to happen all at once. The cognitive load these days of being a human in this earth is just becoming a lot. And I'm trying to think if I should eventually turn this into a blog post or a rant, but it's getting to the point where even, people can't just say, oh, you're too old. It's old people stuff. It's young people as well. Like my kids are at uni and they're just like, why? What is this? And just, I've got 4 or 5 banking apps. They all work slightly differently, even just to watch TV. Like watching TV used to be just like, you push a button, look, TV. Now it's like, oh, which app am I going to use? And oh, which one? How do you turn the subtitles on in this one again? Oh, no, hang on. Oh, where was I? And just, it's just like the death of a thousand cuts, right? All of these things just add to the cognitive load of existing.
Yeah. I
I don't know. And
recognize
they
that.
wonder why people are stressed. I don't know. I don't think it's social media. I don't think everything is social media. And I think it's those of us that build these systems, everybody is trying to differentiate, which exacerbates the problem because by nature, everything is just a little bit different because you want it to be different from the other person's thing. And it's like, but people have to use multiple apps like this. Why? It's like the electronic version of why is the supermarket every different Coles is laid out differently? Why is the butter over here in this shop and it's over there in that shop? Why can't they all be the same? I can't find anything. Old woman yells at cloud.
But the second part of that question is why is that a good thing for you? So I don't know on which of these things you want to go into.
Oh,
but I'm really
that's not a
interested
good thing. No. The learning patience is a good thing. The second one was just a rant. I mean, yeah, I don't even know. I think in small doses, maybe it helps our brains be more nimble, but in the current doses, it just makes everybody stressed and tired.
Does
So
that
yeah.
make you? Does that make you different looking at the applications that your team is creating, for example?
It should. I mean, we're working on banking apps at the moment, and one of the apps that my company, or one of the banking apps, I guess it's a bank that our company builds, is called Up, which is very deliberately different from all of the other apps, and it's very targeted at a younger market, and that's great. Wonderful product, very, very popular. But who's building something for the older market? I want like the really, really most simple app that we can possibly build, that just is very, very, very easy to use. And I think people don't think about those sorts of things. They want to add more. And it's one of those things, it's like the keep it simple, stupid principle, right? It can be actually harder to make things easier to use. So yeah, I would like to be able to build that. But yeah, it's interesting. You'd have to convince people to do that, I think, because everybody's very busy adding things rather than removing them in general. But I think it'd catch on. There's people who are going back to the brick phones, the dumb phones now, the ones that don't have nice screens and just do what phones were meant to do in the first place, to kind of get away from this kind of load. And yeah, you can get an SMS, so you can still log into things, but you don't deal with all the other stuff.
I think it's good, and maybe it's indeed because we're older that we're thinking more about these things. Because young people might want to always try new things, but as much as I'm interested in learning and trying new things, I do also think, yeah, why are we making things much more complicated? And what can I remove from code? What can I remove from the things I'm doing to focus on the things that do bring me joy? And do I really need like multiple banks accounts and whatever? Can't I? Yeah. So that it is something that I think is important to keep thinking about it, both at work and at personal life. I don't have
And the
to
reason I
choose.
think that it's not me and being old is because I see my kids struggling with it, and they're at university, and when they're finding it overwhelming as well, I'm like, oh, okay, we've gone too far. The young people are struggling too. What have we done?
I think, well, if you compare it to the world that I grew up with, definitely from a very young age we get impressions from all around the world, and it maybe not just social media but media in general. Like you get you get constant, even in Belgium, in Europe, and I guess in Australia as well. We keep getting pushed a lot of garbage from another country in the world, and that keeps thinking like, okay, do I really want to see it every day? Because it's a lot of that I keep getting in different kind of things. At the same time, it's like it has an impact on us. So yeah, I
Oh
do want
yeah,
to keep
but
seeing it.
this is something like, for example, though, I need to enroll in my subjects at university. And in order to do that, I've got to have Okta, and I've got to do all these like myriad of things, and the systems are terrible, and just, trying to, even if you turned off all that stuff, just the stuff I need to do banking and try and pay bills and log into my uni stuff, and keeping control of all the passwords, like the kids are sort of like, yeah, they seem as overwhelmed as the rest of us, which is yeah, not what I was expecting, actually. Because yeah, like you were saying, it's sort of like, oh, it's just, are we just not used to this, older, blah blah. Even though you work in tech, I'm like, no, I don't think it's unique to older people, which is, it's a challenge. Anyway, I've digressed onto general world challenges now.
But in a way, it's some of the things that we're struggling with, and as yeah, and that's also a possibility as the answer to that question. So I like that we moved a little bit in multiple kind of directions, and they might influence each other, because how do you keep patient in a world that's so stressful and having putting mental load on people again? That might also have an impact on our patients, or at least it has
Yeah,
on mine.
true. Yep. It can be it definitely adds stress, to your day when you're like, I just want to pay a bill. Take my money.
Yeah, yeah, something this week that happened, that we needed to. Our card went into a normal checkup, and then turned out to have a larger problem, and so we had to pay a lot more. And before, of course, we had to pay it before we can get our car back. And at that very moment, there was a problem with the app and doing problems and whatever. It's like my partner was there trying to get the car, already having, instead of half an hour waiting, 3 or 4 hours, because they worked on something else, and getting much more stressed, and then not being able to pay. And I was in a meeting when she tried to call, lots of things on top of each other. In the end, it worked out, but it was a lot of stress, because she was not able to pay. I was not able to. Well, she took my card to pay, and in the app I wanted to pay, but then I needed the verification, and for that verification I needed the card that she had with her.
See?
And it's like,
Yep.
that
Yep.
that was the
That
kind of
kind of thing
complication.
drives you
Yeah,
mad.
exactly. It's like, okay, I was able to deal with it in another way, but still, it was that kind of thing, one thing on top of each other. And all of these things are very small, but all together, at the moment that there is very limited time, that you're on the time pressure, that's the thing to. And I was, for whatever strange reason, I was able to stay rather patient that day with that. But if I look back on it, it's like, wow, that was actually a lot of stress on top of each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah.
So
Yep. And all you need is, if you were at work and then people were like harassing you about this, and you're like, no, I just need to.
I
Yeah.
was actually facilitating something, and I saw these things coming in. I was lucky that by the time I actually needed to do something, that the meeting was over. But yeah, but I guess the fact that I was doing the work was able for me to ignore it for a while, and stay patient. That doesn't always work. Sometimes it's the opposite. But now it did work. So that is a possibility. Let's move to that next question, because you already, the way you talk about these world problems and other things, that's a lot of passion, that's a lot of drive. Do you know where that drive or that passion is coming from?
I think, well, I want to make the world a better place. Oh, it's like Miss Congeniality, world peace. I think probably what drives me day to day is just the whole continuous improvement idea. Like, how can you be a little bit better in some way, maybe this week than you were last week, whether that means you went to the gym, you got a bit fitter, a bit stronger, you helped somebody with something, you learned something new, you tried something different. It's a lifelong kind of process. But if you think about, how can I just do something a little bit better, I think that's kind of my approach to getting things done, I suppose. Yeah.
And is that something that you've always had?
Probably. I think I started out probably being a bit too much of a perfectionist rather than just being a little bit better. It was like, and this goes back to, be the smartest person, get all the right answers. Schools kind of push you these directions, don't they? It's
Exactly.
kind of like, be the top student, get the right answers, don't get anything wrong, make it perfect. And then after a while, you realize that, you can't live your life that way easily. That's, it's too much. So just thinking about, okay, well, it's not perfect, but is it good enough? And, can I do better next time? Let's roll with that. Let's see how that goes. So yeah, I think it's probably the dialed down perfectionist thing.
Yeah, I loved how you say that, because, and especially what you said about school, because indeed, somehow school, well, school, there can only be the one, the best. There's always like, you have to have the right answers. If you,
Yep.
a lot of that. And I have the feeling, I don't know how it is in Australia, but I have the feeling that in Belgium things got worse over the years. Is that is that similar in Australia?
Yeah. I don't know. It's interesting that there's definite pockets where people are trying to make it better. But it's a bit hard where at the end everybody's like, right, we're all going to do this big fat exam and that's going to decide your future. No pressure, kids. you can
Wow.
you can do this. Yeah, it's I'm not really a fan. So the time when I was teaching in Queensland, they used to do things a little bit differently, and they didn't have this big one exam to rule your life at the end of year 12. You had to do assignments instead. It was assessment based, and it was I get it, for teachers it's a lot more work because you have to sort of try and cross moderate all of these different assignments from students all over the state, and it's a big thing, and they get all the teachers together, and they've ended up getting rid of that now, and they're doing the same thing as everybody else. But certainly teaching IT classes, which is what I was doing, the whole idea of marking a project makes so much more sense than do an exam on IT. I'm like, oh no, really? No, that doesn't make sense to me. That's not a thing. Nobody works that way. Sure, we do projects. That's great. Do that. So yeah, I don't know. I guess my kids survived. They're done. We've survived the process, but it's not great. And it's very, the people who are teaching, who have finished school, gone to uni and gone back to school to be teachers, and that's kind of what they've done. I don't think they do it, with malice, but as in their world, this exam, this is the most important thing in your life. Like, kids, don't mess this up. And I come in as someone who's been outside the system going, hi, I know it. I mean, yes, sure, take it seriously, but also I can tell you a number of stories of people who got to where they were going, regardless of this exam. It is not the end of the world. There are many ways to get to where you need to be. Please don't freak out. And everyone's looking at me like, what's she saying? It's like heresy. Like, it's just not. Like, you're going to be okay, kids. But yeah, it was very interesting going into teaching because, IT. Do I have all the answers? Of course not. Don't be stupid, And the kids are like, but miss, you're here to just teach us everything. And I was like, well, no, I think I'm probably going to learn things from you as well. It was very
Right.
confusing to them to have somebody admit to not having all the answers. It's like, sorry, it's not possible.
But I like what also I want to stress, go a little bit to what you said also about the teachers. They basically they only know school,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
that's the only thing. They've been to school, and then now they're at the other side of school. They've never worked in real projects or something else. And if I look
Yep.
back at my career, the best teachers were the ones who did have a career outside and then went back to teaching or did it on the side or whatever. Um, because they bring in a whole different world. And again, like you said, it's not bad per se, but it's limited in their worldview.
It is.
And
Yep.
that doesn't help, of course. And like you said earlier on, these days a career is so much different. My parents indeed had just one. Well, actually, my father worked in the two different kind of things, but again, very related. Um, my mother worked as a nurse and then as a teacher nurse, so it still was very related. Um, but that was like two different things for both of them, and all the rest of their life was always the same. Um, while these days, like you just explained, the different roles that you had, I you didn't really say it, but I kind of, and maybe it's good to check. Was that at all at the same company or different kind of companies? How was
Oh,
that?
no. Different companies. Yep, definitely. A lot of banks, and then some SaaS companies. And now I'm back at a bank working on digital stuff. So it's kind of the intersection of all worlds there.
But different kind of experience from different kind of companies,
Oh,
different
yeah.
a few
Yep.
different sectors even. So that shows again a variety of experiences, and I think that's also yeah, is really helpful for all kind of ways of looking at things. And that's I think reality for many people these days. It's yeah, we do very different kind of things, and not just one career or one job.
Yep.
Very different.
And that's
And
interesting too, because it used to be, imagine I'm looking at your resume. I'm like, oh, look at you. Look at you're a job hopper. Look at all the jobs you've been at. Oh, are you not loyal to your company? This is a bad worker. And now it's the other way around. Gosh, this person's been at the same company for 10 years in the same role. Oh, they must be very fixed in their ways. No, next. And it's flipped quite dramatically. Um, and maybe this is particular in tech where we're sort of supposed to be, keeping up with things. But yeah, it used to be very much, and I've got friends who are still like concerned about, showing that they've worked in lots of jobs or showing that they've had a break from work. And I'm saying, I don't think anybody cares anymore, actually. I don't think it's considered the big hindrance it used to be, like if women went on maternity leave, it was like, but don't leave a gap on your LinkedIn, you've got to try and fill it up with something. Now it's like people go on parental leave, it's allowed. Nobody bats an eye, they didn't work, they were off writing a book. Oh, cool, that's okay. I think we're a little bit less rigid about, or perhaps more agile, about workplaces and things people do.
and like you say, the fact that people work 10 years in the same is not per se negative as well. They might have done a lot of different things. I think a lot depends on what you do. You can do 10 years at 10 different companies, but doing 10 times exactly the same trick, or learning 10 years in the same company, all 10 different kind of things. So, yeah, just
Yep.
the number of years and the kind different number of companies doesn't say much. It's really the stories behind it that is much more
Yep,
interesting.
definitely.
So that's
And if you're working in something like consulting, you might have the same role and you're at a different company, and it's a whole different workplace and a different setup, and you have a different experience, even though your job title is the same. So yeah.
exactly. So
Mm.
really interesting to look at these kind of things, how the world has changed. Let's move to that next question. What do you consider your biggest achievement? And what I've noticed when I ask this question, but basically this is your moment to brag and to be really proud. And is that easy for you, Michelle, to brag?
Of course not. I'm Australian. We don't do that sort of thing. We joke about it and say things like, "My kids, I kept them alive. They're adults now. That's what an achievement. They seem mostly okay." Although unfortunately for them, I think they've inherited my sense of humor. So sorry, kids. But it's interesting. I think there's probably been a bunch of different small highlights over the years. Like there's not one really big thing. Like I haven't, cured cancer or done anything super amazing. I've worked on a lot of projects that went really well, worked with a lot of people that were great. I think, and again, maybe this is the theme of the continuous improvement, finding meaning in the small things, like I like helping people get their job done better, putting in systems. I worked on one project where, as far as we knew, it was not going well because we were dealing with the client's project people who were not going to say things were good because they wanted to, contractually make us do more work or something. I don't know. But as far as we knew, things were bad. And then when we went down there and talked to people, and they went, "Oh, are you working on that new system? It's amazing. Like, it saved me so much time today. It's great." And I just was like, "Oh, isn't that nice? We didn't know that. we thought it was going very badly. So good to know." And you just think, "Oh, wow, we built something that's made somebody's job easier. That's great." So yeah, little things like that I think are really quite meaningful. I can think back to little moments of times when somebody's built something or done something or helped me with something, and I'm like, "Oh, that was great." So I think, helping people, teaching them something they didn't know before, like all these little moments kind of add up, more so in my head than like some big ta-da. Maybe I'm an underachiever. I don't know.
But it could also be, like you said, the small improvements and the fact that you keep doing that and you have been doing that for a long time could be a big thing in its own, because sometimes people, yeah, they don't do that. So, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, little things. I haven't written a book. I've done some talks. People liked them. That was good. Yeah, don't know. Nothing spectacular. Lots of small moments. What do they call them? Glimmers. Not the little sparks of work-related joy. I think I've had a lot of
And
those.
and well, this is the interesting part for me about that question. The biggest achievement, should that be something enormous? That could be just small little things, as well. Is that when you hear big achievement, should that be something enormous like curing cancer, or
Oh, I guess that's what I think when I hear that. Like one big thing. Um, yeah, I don't know. Probably the biggest thing I've actually done is a long time ago when I was at school. I had a subject that made us essentially write a thesis for year 12, and myself and one other gal who was in my class, ours got picked to go on like a tour of the exemplars of this thing. And then so mine was the effect of cigarette advertising on smoking rates on teenagers, with a massive study of my high school, which I'm sure data scientists would weep if they saw this. Was all done.
you talked about that largest thing you did when you started at school.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
go from there.
so yeah, probably the one of the biggest things I guess I've done. I don't know if I guess it's kind of an achievement. When I was at high school, we had a subject where you had to write essentially a thesis, and I had done mine on the effects of cigarette advertising on adolescent smoking behavior or something to that effect. Yes, data scientists would weep at my survey techniques and data gathering at my high school, all done on pen and paper and graphs and stuff. But yeah, it was published. Sorry,
We'll get there eventually.
and
So it's all good.
action. Right. Anyway, so I had written this kind of a paper, and it was taken as one of the exemplars to kind of tour around the state or whatever. And somehow there was a group that was operating in Australia at the time called Action on Smoking and Health, and they decided, hey, this is great. This is something that's written by, a young person. And so they said, hey, can we publish this? And I went, oh, okay, sure, whatever. And they ended up sending a copy to, I think, every politician in Australia. And they all then wrote back to me. So my letterbox at college was essentially perpetually full of people acknowledging that they had received this thing. And then I ended up getting asked to go on the Australian equivalent of the Today Show and talk about it. And it was funny. I was going through my mum's old stuff, and she's still got the video recording, which is hilarious. I remember it was very early in the morning. I looked very tired. So yes, that was my moment of fame. I got to be on national television for this this funny little thing that I wrote at high school. That's probably, that was it. That was the 15 minutes of fame. Went early before I even started really working.
So that could be indeed a big thing, and maybe it's less big for you now because it's so long in the past. I think we also you talked briefly about some community work that you done not that long ago. Uh, is that something that you consider important? Not so much big, but maybe important.
I do a bit of stuff with the tech community. Definitely in Melbourne, it's a very helpful community. I think when I moved here, I was still working remotely, and I think we'll talking about remote work a bit later, but I didn't know anybody, and I went to a lot of meetups, and people were very generous with their time and very helpful, and I learned a lot. So I think, yep, I'd reinvest into that, and I try and help people where I can. A lot of, probably now I'm doing mostly like women in tech kind of groups. Yeah, I think right, that sort of stuff's important too, helping people out. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that might be also, I don't know if it's an achievement if you do these kind of things. It's more probably like, again, like you say, kind of paying it forward to other people, people pay to you.
Yeah.
But that is also an important thing, I think. Let's move to that next question. Do you have a personal agility tip to share?
I think that breaking things down into manageable chunks is a very good one. I think a lot of times people can get overwhelmed by the sheer enormity of a task. And if you think, okay, well, I'm just going to break it down, and then I can do things like one at a time. I think that's a very helpful way to approach a lot of things. There always seems to be a way to break things down into things that are more manageable.
And now my camera is off. Great.
Yeah.
I'm still here. I'm going to try to keep working on it. This is probably yeah, okay. I know how to fix it. So we'll just take a couple of minutes. So break things down into manageable parts.
Yeah, it's like that small batch thing. I think that really works. And being able to, whether you're using people like personal Kanban, or even if it's a to-do list, just checking things off and gradually getting through the big thing. It's a lot easier than just trying to just look at this unsurmountable task and think, oh God, I don't even know where to begin. You think, all right, I know how to begin. I'll break it up and then do one bit at a time. I did try telling this when I was teaching. I tried the analogy of, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And the kids were just like, oh, miss, you can't eat elephants. And I'm like, no, that's not the point. So yes, I no longer talk about elephants. They were genuinely freaked out. I was like, it's not really about eating an elephant, guys. Oh dear.
Do you feel that when people break down in things, I sometimes have people reacting when I try to teach them. It's like, yeah, but I will be more efficient if I just group things back together, if I don't split it up. How do you deal with that kind of remarks?
Well, I don't know. I mean, if it's whatever works in some ways. If there is probably a point where things are broken down too small, breathe in, breathe out, shoelaces on, what. Yeah, I think if people feel like they can group things together and still get them done, then okay, do it. In a work sense, we try and think about things in a certain number of days. Can you get this done in a day or 2 days? I don't know if it's a personal task and it's like moving house, it's it's kind of up to you how you break things down, right?
Right. I think, yeah. But I've noticed that the some of the people that could use most advantages of using things in smaller stuff have the tendency to group things more. Yeah, I've noticed that then it's kind of harder to convince them, and they're right in many ways. But at the same time, it takes longer to deliver something, and more importantly, it takes much longer to get feedback. And then they get feedback when things are almost finished, and then yeah, it of course creates a lot more emotions and a lot more stress.
Oh yeah, and in that case, if you can set a boundary about number of days, how long? Is this going to take you a day? If it's going to take you a week, that's too long. Make it smaller.
Yeah, exactly.
I know, teams I work on, we try and make the work sort of the same size chunks and agree on what size that's going to be. And then, might be a little bigger or a little smaller, but you're sort of all aiming for the same size. That seems to work pretty well.
Right. Okay, let's move to what you already hinted before, the remote work. What have you learned about remote work? And you already briefly talked about it, but maybe also to set the scene a bit, when did you start to work with remote work? When did you do your first remote kind of work?
Yes, I am glad you asked. I have been working remotely since 2007, before it was cool. So, yeah, it's definitely, the tools have improved since then. I think we were doing a lot of stuff by email and by chat, and not so much by voice or even video, because the internet just couldn't cope and we didn't have the right tools for it. So I think the main thing that I would like people to keep in mind about working remotely is you do have to have structure and planning for things that you don't if you're just in the office. Like you're not going to just run into somebody in the kitchen and have a chat over a cup of tea, when you're working remotely. You have to kind of schedule things a lot of the time, and it feels very artificial at first, which I think people can find it a bit off-putting. Like, we have to schedule social time. This is so weird. Why would you do that? But I think if you can get that going into a rhythm, it actually starts helping a lot with kind of the camaraderie of the team and building trust and all of those kind of important things. It's interesting when the pandemic and suddenly people had to work remotely, and it's kind of like, yes, have Zoom, have a web camera, you're good, off you go. It's like, yeah, it doesn't actually work that way. It's not that easy. There's a fair bit of planning and organization to do it well. And it's interesting now, things are sort of like, yeah, it's hybrid. And hybrid can often be the worst of all worlds, because what you have then is the people in the office and everything's kind of set up for them. And then there's like, oh yeah, and then there's people online, and their experience can be quite poor. And people have kind of thrown out the things that they probably knew, which is like, if one person is remote, then everybody should be remote in order to have an equitable experience. It's like, oh yeah, but we're all in the office, like it's easier to do it this way. So I think, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of plays out. At the moment, from what I can tell, people seem to just put up with it. Like, oh yeah, well, I know if I'm at home and everyone's in the office, I just know it's going to be rubbish. And I'm like, I think we can do better. And obviously, there's some very smart people that have been working on this for quite some time. And if I peer, looks like, is that Work Together Anywhere but back there in your
Yes,
bookshelf?
exactly.
So you know the drill, right? Like, Lizette has been talking about this stuff for a long time, and a lot of people have. And I think if people are keen to have a better experience, there's a lot of really good information out there. But you really need to make a conscious decision to do this. And I feel like, I've worked for remote first companies, and they have made the conscious decision we are going to work very well remotely, which is very different from, hey, we're all hybrid now, which I don't think is necessarily giving people the right signals that they need to kind of make remote a first class experience.
Right. That's and when you said you worked remotely before, um, was that how was the shift for you during the pandemic? Because you had that previous experience, and like you said, maybe not that much with videos and things like that. Now we have these things. How was that easy for you, the Swift of switch, or was that as hard as many people who've never done it before? What was that for you?
Well, when the pandemic started was when I was working for Yao, which, for people who don't know, is a big conference company. Well, it's big in Australia. It's the big independent tech conference company in Australia. And so that was very interesting because, of course, conferences need people, and they are usually all in one place. So we ended up running events online, which everybody was trying to do, and there's a big crazy scramble, and what's the best technology, and it was not probably the world's best conference series, but people were very keen to still have something.
Right.
And it was very well supported, and we managed to kind of keep alive through all of the lockdowns in Australia. So that was, yeah, my previous my previous experience working
Didn't really
remotely
help.
did not prepare me for that. But yeah,
But the
I
conference
guess,
kept going. It wasn't.
yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah,
that's good.
yep. And yeah, we tried a whole bunch of different things. There was some good experimentation, and it worked out. It worked out all right. Then after that, I worked for a company that is a remote first company. So there was still, I think there was even still lockdowns. I don't know. In Australia, it just went on forever, but it didn't matter because everybody was remote, and they were very well set up for that. So yeah, it was fine. I think the thing I struggle with most is the return to office mandate for some companies, while also having people offshore. So you're just in an open plan office. Everybody's got a headset on going, yap, 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 to people online. And we could be doing this at home, guys. We don't need to be here for this. Although with the quality of my internet, maybe I do need to be in the office. um, and then, like I was saying, that the hybrid thing, I think, is, for a lot of companies, potentially not necessarily well thought out. It's just kind of a convenience thing. You're allowed to work from home, but yeah, the activities and things aren't really organized in such a way to make it equitable for everybody, whether they're physically in the office or not.
I think we still, well, it- we've been working so long in the office, and a lot of rules and a lot of ideas grew, and habits even worked in working in the office. And now we have to learn a lot of them for remote working, because this is, yeah, as a whole world, we've only been doing this for 5 years. Okay, many people have some experiences before, but these experiences are only spread in books like the one from Lisette and a couple of others, but very limited experiences, I would say. um, and experiences, while, like you said, the tools were written literally at the moment. Like Zoom existed before, but it exploded, and they added a lot of people there, added a lot of features in very short time, which wasn't always a good thing at the same time, I would say, but that's a whole different
Mm.
discussion. So yeah, I think, let's see each other back in 10 to 20 years to see how things have moved, I would say. Maybe the internet was got better by that time.
We'll be in the metaverse.
Yeah, will be. So that's a possibility as well. Okay, let's move to that next question. What's a book that you have read that you want to talk about?
Okay, here's a book I prepared earlier. Here it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting. We were talking about schools and how they work and the assessments and all that kind of thing, because that's a very heavy theme in this book. So this book's written by Dr. Linda McIver. She's a data scientist and she's been a school teacher, and she's basically on a mission to improve data literacy and critical thinking to help make the world a better place. She's founded the Australian Data Science Education Institute. And what she does with that is she produces curriculum materials for teachers who, strangely enough, are not data scientists, so that they can use it in their classroom to help teach their kids. And she runs workshops to kind of help them with that. And so the whole premise of the book is to just talk about how education can be changed using data science to help create creative problem solvers and critical thinkers and rational skeptics and people who challenge the status quo and think about, things beyond, is this, yes or no, is this the answer, right? She has very very big issues with the whole way science is taught. You do an experiment to get the right answer. She's like, that's not how science should work. Like, you're supposed to be trying to disprove
The opposite.
things. You're not. Yeah. So yeah, it's a great book. There's a lot of great ideas in there about how to shake things up as a teacher or as a parent or as somebody that just generally cares about the next generation. When the social media and the newspaper articles were all full of graphs during COVID. Linda started collecting, the terrible graphs. Like, what are the axes on this? What is this supposed to tell us? Like, this is not, nobody can read this. Nobody understands this, and just, it was really apparent that time that people just can't even create or read a graph. She's like, this is basic stuff that people need to be able to understand to make sense of the world around them, and we're just not helping equip kids and teachers to help the kids with this kind of information. So it's something that I'm very interested in as well. And the whole other sort of series of getting kids interested in technology as well, beyond programming robots. Linda was teaching at a science specialized selective science high school here, and she's like, these are the kids who you would think they would be so excited about this stuff. They were bored. They didn't want to program robots. So she got them involved in data science projects around things that were important to them, that they could actually do experiments, measure, do the data, check again, improve things. And they loved it. And they were all like smashing out Python code, and kids that didn't want to code were doing it in Excel. And, she's like, wow, okay. It's not that people aren't interested in programming. They just need to get the meaning behind it. So, a lot packed into this little skinny book. It's fabulous.
I love it because it's, there's a couple of things. Well, first of all, what you said about the way scientists thought, I never thought about it, because I see so many people not understanding science, and it could be, well, linked to other things, but it could also be linked to that, because the way we've learned science is, yeah, it's always right. Like, no, that's not how science is discovered, and that's how that,
Yeah.
and that
Yep.
it makes people think about science in a completely wrong way. So I really like that you stress that. So that's really good to think about. And yeah, I've worked myself with Coder Dojo in Ghent to work with children, and it was very clear that yeah, for example, girls and boys, they were both interested in programming, but they were interested in programming different stuff. So the boys wanted to, I don't know, make a game where there was a basketball game or whatever, and then girls were more interested in, okay, choosing clothes for their dolls, whatever, and then programming. But it's the same skills that they're using, but in a different way. And the best results we got was when the children invented exercises that then could be taught to other children, because that was coming from
Yep.
the world of the children. The parents that came up with exercises, they were always less interesting to children. And the more we got exercises from the children, like, okay, you do something at home, you send it to us if you have questions. And they thought, oh, it's bothering you. No, it's actually helping us, because this is an exercise that we can then teach other children. And if we then, okay, maybe we change it a little bit to make sure that there is enough data so other children can understand it, and then give that as an exercise, these children are like, wow, okay, I'm really happy that my exercise is now taught to others. So like, it's encouraging everyone.
Yeah.
It's really
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah, it
it's
was interesting, some of the projects that, and with the ones that Linda's done, like the kids come up with them as well. Like, what are you interested in? And that, primary
exactly.
school teachers are like, primary school kids are kind of like, oh, you know, why is there's always such a long line of cars for drop off? Like, is there anything we can do to make it faster? We're always like waiting in the line. So, they're down there like counting the cars and working out if there's anything. And they actually changed how the school did the drop off, because they worked out a better way. And when they measured it, they could see that it was faster, and they went back to the school and were like, hey, let's change it. And so they actually got to make a change that affected them, and they were like, wow, this is so cool. So yeah, getting the kids to do something that was meaningful to the world around them is definitely been the key, I think, to getting them engaged in these sorts of things.
Yeah, we had in Belgium, we just celebrated 10 years of coolest projects, and that's this is basically a fair where children from all around Belgium bring their project that they've worked on, and yeah, it's just 10 years in a row that this been happening, where children bring whatever they've been working on, mostly STEM related, but that's really a kind of good way to show, yeah, let children invent some things. And some children,
Yeah, awesome.
I wasn't there this year, but I remember from past years that children brought in projects where they helped, I don't know, someone created an app that could help his grandmother for selecting pills and whatever. I don't know the details anymore, but a lot of interesting things where children looked indeed, like you said, at the world around them, and like, okay, how could I improve this world? How could I help a person that is dear to me, with some kind of project? So that's always a nice way to have these kind of things. So
Yeah.
thank you for bringing that book, because I think, well, of course, every week, or I publish one thing every week, and so I interview more than, and so every time I hear a book that's like, oh, that's another one to read, and there's a lot of books there
Yep.
already. Um,
I can see
well,
that.
most of them I have read, or have read multiple times. And actually, I read much more on Kindle these days than physical
Yeah,
books.
same.
But still, it's another book to read. It's
I
definitely,
know.
what you
The
said.
pile
It's
is
really
real. It's, yeah.
well,
I
on
have one of
Kindle,
those
it's
too.
less a pile. For me, what I typically do is, and I intend to do the same thing here with this book, if it's available on Kindle, but I think so, is I will just add it to now, how do I do it? I buy the, not buy, I download the, there is, with Kindle, there is always a free part of the book that you can download, typically the first chapter or something like that. I download it on my Kindle, and so that's on my pile to read. but I haven't bought it. And then when I look for a book, I might look at this one, read that introduction or that first part. If I still like it, then I buy it. So I buy less, but the ones I buy, I read immediately. And I keep reading more. So that's the interesting part. Now with this podcast, I read a lot less than I used to read. That I have to admit. But yeah, but
I
it's
discovered that I bought things on different formats. So somebody might start a book and I'll buy it on Leanpub. And, as they're going through it, and then I'm like, yes. And then I forget that it's there because they're still changing it or whatever. And then I may buy it again on Kindle. And then somehow I may also end up with a hard copy. I have 3 copies of Dynamic Reteaming in 3 different formats.
it's I
It's
recognize
good
that
all
well.
3 times.
It's we're supporting our friends, I would say. Actually,
That's it.
I do this rather on purpose. I buy books on Audible. That for me, Audible is a kind of well, I drive less, but you typically was either driving or being on a train that I would listen to a book. If and it's a kind of a first filter. There's a lot of times that I listen to a full book that I say this is good enough for reading. Um, but then I know that listening is not just enough. So I'll keep buying it again to read, typically on Kindle. And if I'm still liking it after that, I might say, okay, I buy a physical copy because I want to leave it at customers and I want to give it out, which I can't do with
Yep.
Kindles. Otherwise, I have to have multiple
Yes.
Kindles. So
Yep.
that's a little bit harder. Um, so yeah, I have from quite a couple of books, three versions, on purposely bought for multiple purposes. So yeah, the hard part is finding like yesterday, no, not yesterday, this week, last week, somebody was talking about a couple of books, and I know I have both of them. One was the Lean Startup, the other one was the book for Discovery. I don't remember anymore, but I know I have both books, and I just don't know which versions in what. Where is it? I should have physical
Yes.
copies. I should have digital copies. Where do I find it? That's yeah. I
Yep.
almost need an app to keep track of which is where. But
There you go. There probably is an app for that, actually.
okay, probably.
Your
But then
personal
again,
personal
the,
library.
then you still need to actually what I would love to have is being able to take a picture of this library behind me and then get a list. Okay, these are the books and that book is there, because finding that book back. Okay, now I've turned a couple of books with the cover to the camera for the podcast, but if I would remove them, all the books behind it, it still would take me 10 minutes to find a certain book. um, and I on
You don't have
purposely
them
don't
alphabetized or
I
organized by the
don't
Dewey Decimal System? Come on.
Actually, I did. This is something I do on purpose. Like, okay, there's might be some kind of organization, but then things might move around. And I actually learned that it helps me to find books back at different moments, and then it's interesting. Oh, let's look at this book again. Maybe not read it, but flip through a book, and this is something I actually like. To not always, yeah, to just have the diversity of looking at the book at some point. So I like that
Yeah.
as well.
I do like, the Kindle's great, especially if you move house as much as I do, but I do love like flipping through a book. You can't just get always to where you want to go. You can't just sort of, pull it up and just be like, oh yeah, yep, oh, this bit science is solved. Yeah, this one, like, yeah, it's great. The hard copy is great.
Yeah, I agree that's. Let's move to that next question. And for a conversation like this, I'm really interested in that. What's a question that you think I should also ask you, and what is the answer?
And see, I've thought so hard about this and I can't come up with anything, because I can come up with like silly questions like what is the answer to the meaning of life, the universe, and everything. But just questions I don't have answers to, I think, at the moment. There's so many questions, like all these things that are going on with the world. The economy is bad again, young people are trying to get jobs. What would you tell them how to get a job? And I'm just like, oh, I don't have an answer to any of this. I have only questions. Help.
And do you think you need to have an answer to all of these things?
Well, I do, because that was the thing. I should have a question and what is the answer? And I don't have an answer. I just have questions. That was the problem. I feel like probably a lot of the kind of advice that I would give people or something like that is maybe covered in some of the other questions we've done. So I was actually very stumped by this one. Yeah, I don't know. What question do you think I should ask that you should ask that I should ask you?
Well, I was interesting because indeed I did ask what's the answer, but the answer could just be I don't know. That could also be part of. Are there questions that are on top of your head where you say, okay, that one I don't know, but I still would be interested if other people had the answer, or yeah, things like that.
Yeah, I think the things I think about sometimes, I don't think anyone's got an answer. What's AI going to do to us all, and when will people stop talking about it? Yeah, I think we're at a very much very interesting times right now, aren't we? That I don't know if I think all times are interesting, but just at the cusp of political upheavals and a lot of uncertainty and environmental decline, and AI is going to take all our jobs, and it just seems like there's a lot to ponder right now. And I was like thinking I would love to be able to say something reassuring to people who are feeling overwhelmed, amongst all the layoffs and all the thises and that's, and I think it's a good time to reach out to your community, I think, and have people that you can talk to about things. Communities are very important. I know, even during the pandemic, just having a group of friends and colleagues that you could talk to, and just get advice from. And sometimes you need a hype person, like you've been laid off, or whatever, people, your company has told you your services are no longer required. Like that's quite a hit, right? Like you need people to be like, no, it's not you, it's them, you're going to be okay. I had a chat with a friend today who was in a toxic workplace, and luckily in some ways for her, the antagonist was the person let go, not herself, but she's just being recovered from basically being bullied and told she was terrible and useless for quite some time. And now it's just kind of like, oh, I know they're gone, but I still feel it. So yeah, it's very helpful to have people around you that you can lean on. I think is getting through this together. Let's get through this together, everybody. We can do it.
Yeah, it's interesting, like you say, that in the situation where that other person was let go, that it still feels bad for your friend in a way. They still went through that experience, and so yeah, that is important to keep feeling it and realizing that that situation was real. I think that's true. And indeed, like you said, there's many companies. At the current company I'm working with, they were also letting go people because of their financial situation. Had nothing to do with the people, but still, I can imagine that for some people, they feel like, why me and why not someone else? And yeah, it's.
Oh yeah. I mean, there's still a lot of it going. It's still going on, I think. Now people are all in on AI, and it's like, you're not AI enough. We don't need you anymore. And I'm thinking, don't know how long that's going to last, but it doesn't. The AI thing doesn't. It's becoming slightly unhinged, I think, at some places. It's tilted too far in. It's like, we're all in on AI. And I'm like, do you want to put all your chips on that? Really? Everything? Betting the farm. I think at the end of the day, you still need people. So,
I
yeah.
agree. We still need people for a lot of kind of things. let's move to already that last question. And we're talking about people. So, who do you think I should ask next? And I think you have a small list of people that you think
I
should.
do have a small list, and one of the people on the list was somebody that, since I know that you have already spoken to them because the video came out, which was Alex Stokes. So I was
That's
focusing
her,
on,
indeed. We so
yeah.
so um okay. I've invited. I've already talked to her. But why did you think that I should have her on the show?
Oh, well, I was focusing for my invite list of women that I know around Agile in Melbourne, because I feel like, we us poor little people down here at the bottom of the earth probably don't get to mingle with everybody that hangs out in the US and Europe. So Alex, I have known for many years. She's one of the stalwarts of the Melbourne Agile community. She's written a great book. She's a very wise person. She's very good to bounce ideas off of. Like I said, one of the community people that I learned a lot from when I was first starting out. So yeah, I was very pleased to see that you had already had her on there. Of course, she's got her own consultancy as well. Does a lot of work around town. Very well known and well respected agilist of Melbourne. Mm.
So yeah, indeed, and it was a wonderful conversation. And like I showed, number 166. If people want to go back to that, I'll link it also in the show notes of this one. So, but that's just one, and you had multiple more. Who's the next person you want to bring
I
on?
did. Weiling Ko is another person who,
And that
again,
should be her, if I'm correct.
it is still her. Yes, yes. I believe her hair is longer now. Like many of us, we grew our hair during the pandemic. So she's a professional Scrum trainer with Scrum.org. She's been a speaker at Agile Australia and probably a bunch of other conferences as well. She's worked at a lot of big companies around Australia and also in the Netherlands. She's originally from the Netherlands. But yeah, again, just someone I've known for more than 10 years around Agile in Melbourne, and a very interesting person. Yeah.
And then the next one. I think you had three. So who's that third person?
I had Ruma Dak, and so similar to Weiling, she's been in the Melbourne Agile community for 10 years, worked at
And this
major
is
tech
her?
companies. That is her, absolutely. Worked at major tech companies, spoken at conferences. She's currently working with Sooner, Safer, Happier. So yeah, these are three fabulous ladies that I have known for more than 10 years now and very active in the community down here, and I think would be an interesting addition to your collection.
Thank you for that, because I think indeed that is interesting. And you just mentioned, and let's see if I can bring that up. You mentioned the book. Oh well, you mentioned Sooner, Safer, Happier, and I think that's based on this book. I'm trying to bring it up here. This book, right?
Yes, yes, it is. Mm-hmm.
Have you had any experience with it? I've just finished reading it or listening to it. I haven't read it, but I want to.
I haven't read the book yet. It is on my giant pile. But yeah, there's a lady called Maria Muir as well that's working with that group down here, and so I've seen her do some presentations on it, and I mean, it seems to make good sense. A lot of the stuff that that they're talking about, and anything that has a human centric approach, I find appealing, and this seems to. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
What can you tell me about it?
Well, there is somewhere in the. It talks a lot about anti patterns and patterns, and I like that part as well, because it shows like, okay, it's interesting, because at the same time it talks about not wanting to focus on methodologies, and at the same time it kind of becomes its own methodology. That's a little bit strange, but it does focus on, okay, this is why this is not working well, or this should be paying attention to this and that, and I really like that. So, like I said, I've just only listened to it, so it's definitely on my to read list now, to go much more into depth. Because, like I said earlier on, listening is just one part of it, and I might miss some other parts, but it's definitely something that. And it was already a long time on my list, but then I said, okay, I never seemed to read it. Let's first listen to it and see. But it's keeping on my list also to read, so that's definitely worthwhile for people to read. Now, Michelle, we've been talking for a long time. Had some hiccups, but still, we were able to finish up, having a very nice conversation. If people want to reach out to you, what's a good way for them to connect with you?
LinkedIn always works.
That
I am
should be the
intermittent.
connection.
That is, yes, that is me. I am intermittently on Blue Sky, but pretty much LinkedIn is the best place, I reckon.
Yeah, it only left me to thank you very much for your time. It's already Sunday evening now for you. We're at well, a little bit over or almost close to 1 o'clock in the afternoon for me on a Sunday as well. So I'm going to enjoy the rest of my Sunday, and I still wish you a nice evening for the rest of the evening.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thank you for your time. Lovely to chat.
I'm always happy to when I can connect to other parts of the world and see how things work over there and learn from your experience. So really thankful for your time.
Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you for watching Who's Agile, where the stories of agilists come to life. I hope you liked today's interview. Subscribe if you're not subscribed and want to get to know other agilists.